I think more so than other types of financial models, real estate models rely on dates and timelines. One of the key formulas we will be using is EO month, which stands for end of month. The inputs for this formula are start date as well as the number of months, which is often going to be our hold period. Predictably, what this formula is going to do for us is take that start date and return the date that is the given number of months away. And we generally try to model things off of the end of the month, so this formula works nicely. And once we get into the modeling, you'll see that time will end up being an input quite frequently, especially when we're modeling developments. So we'll make regular use of custom formatting to label things months or years and sometimes quarters. And then lastly, we're going to be building out monthly cash flows as our basis, and ultimately we'll summarize them annually, so the timeline will become very important. Let's go ahead and open up our Excel exercises. Go to the worksheet for exercise number 1. For most exercises, I'll ask you to give them a shot on your own before we walk through it together. But this one is pretty straightforward, so we'll go ahead and do it together fairly quickly. So first, we're going to start by just reinforcing what we talked about with color coding. So I'm going to put 2 inputs here in cells D4 and F4. And so because these are inputs, they'll need to be in blue. I have my Macabacus shortcuts turned on, and so for me, it's just Control-Shift-C to cycle through colors. But if you're not using the shortcut, you could also use the native shortcuts to get to your color coding. So Alt-H, F-C, and then you could hit M for more colors. And then we can go ahead and choose the color blue. Now I'm going to do a calculation in row 6 using those inputs we created, do multiplication just to make it simple. And again, because calculations are black, we don't need to change the color. And then lastly, links to another sheet. Just got a placeholder here in cell B25 on the cover sheet. This will need to be green. Again, I'm using Macabacus shortcuts, but you could go through Alt-H, F-C, and then just choose a green from here. Now, let's go down to custom formatting. And we're really just going to talk about 2 different formats, multiples and labels. So again, just going to type a 2, and this is an input, so it's blue. And I've got my Macabacus shortcuts on, so I could cycle through if I wanted to different formats. I'm going to go ahead and cycle through to the multiple format, and we're going to jump into Control-1 in our Format Cells box just to take a look at the syntax here. So you'll see in this box we have 3 numbers. The first is how a positive number would be formatted, the second, a negative, and then last, a 0. So let's set this back to just a general format, and then let's recreate this without using the Macabacus shortcuts. So again, we're going to hit Control-1 to go into our Format Cells box. We're going to custom category, and now we're going to recreate what we saw before. So the first thing is, how do we want to format a positive number? I'm just going to do 1 decimal place. We've got an X, and so you can see up here, it's showing you what the format for this box is going to be. Colon, the only difference is now we're talking about a negative number, so I'm going to put this in parentheses. And then lastly, if it's a 0, let's just say there's going to be 3 dashes. So at this point, it's worth mentioning that the letter X is treated differently than other characters, that we don't have to put it in quotes in order for it to maintain its integrity as a number. Any other value, we would have to put in quotes, and we'll see this when we want to apply custom formatting to date inputs. So let's say for the labels, let's use 5 months. It's already formatted, and we see that here. But again, let's take this back to general, go into our Control-1, custom. And for this one, a lot of times you can just add quotation marks at the end, a space, and then type whatever words you want at the end. Now we'll see, even though this says 5 months, it's still a number, and we can use it in formulas. Now, as I mentioned before, X is treated special in that we don't have to put it in quotation marks for it to maintain its integrity. Now, let's talk about timelines. Timelines and dates have a special place in real estate financial modeling, as they're going to be a key driver of our pro forma and also be a place where we want to make sure we've built in the appropriate level of flexibility. Once we jump into modeling, you'll see that we're going to have a timeline at the top of our model, which is going to look similar to what is shown here in the exercise. So let's just walk through this row by row. First, we're going to track the number of years we're looking at in our investment. You'll see we're starting with a hard-coded number in the first cells, and then also hard-coded 12 ones for the first year. So the question is, why would we hard-code 12 ones? Well, first, there are 12 months in a year, and by hard-coding the entire first year, this will allow us to start year 2 by referencing back to the first month in year 1. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do add 1 here. So now you'll see we can just drag this out. Let's go. And we'll see this just drags out to be 2s until you get to column AC, where we can see it is now referencing this 2, and the formula is self-referencing and will allow it to be dynamic. And we're going to do a very similar thing for quarters, except you'll see, again, there's only 3 months in a quarter, so that's all we needed to hard code. Copy that formula over. I'm copying formulas using, let's see, for me, Control-C, Alt-E-S, and then you'll see you've got various different paste specials, F for formula. Now if we go to the next row, we're really just working with months, and so we can just reference the prior month, and again, copy formulas over. And then lastly, the date. As we talked about, we'll use the EO month formula quite often. And so our first input you'll see here is the start date, which is just going to be the previous date. And we just want to move 1 month at a time. And then I'm going to use Alt-HN to use the short date format. And then we can just copy that over as well. Except this time I need to also copy my formatting. Let's bring in the boxes as well. It's not super clean, but it gets the point across. And so then we want to just copy everything over. Ah, see, I forgot to put +1 here. There we go. If I wanted to clean this up, just Control-1, go over to borders, and say none. So now we see we have our years here. We have quarters changing every 3 months. Our months are changing every cell, same as our date. And so that's really it for exercise number 1. Just wanted to spend some time quickly reinforcing some modeling best practices that I'm sure many of you are already familiar with.